Hey everyone, I just wanted to talk briefly this video about the Ala Wai Flood Project. It's being sort of revisited and it's going through its supplemental EIS process. So they've decided to um, do a supplemental EIS that kind of supplements the original EIS that they did back in 2017, I believe, timeframe for the first Ala Wai flood study. Um, this kind of came on my radar as kind of was looking into the Manoa Court project, and in that project, they're planning to develop a forested, kind of naturally forested watershed-like area, and I had concerns, that I thought flooding kind of was a thing, in Manoa because we get a lot of rain, and the concern was increased impervious surfaces from the build out. What would that do with the stormwater? That's kind of where I sort of read about this Ala Wai flood study, that the previous one, 2017, um, and and again, this is the entire Ala Wai watershed. So from Manoa, we're at kind of at the top, but it goes all the way down through Makiki, Molili, all the way down to Waikiki. Um, and anyway, that's kind of how I got you know into into this or interested in this. So news is that it's back. They're trying to reevaluate the original and maybe have either new plans or updated plans. And to do that, they're going to do a supplemental EIS, and the public comment window is open now. They've extended it until I believe May 8th. So we can provide comments to this Ala Wai project. It's a supplemental EIS. It's sort of a scoping time, so where our public comments would be the kind of things that we would want to see uh, in the EIS study, the supplemental EIS. Um, my understanding of this supplemental is that they can use things from the original if it makes sense. So some of the original studies, let's say if it still applies, but if they're changing elements of the mitigation plan, then they need to reevaluate those components. So there's a decent amount different as far as how they're planning to even do the flood management this time around. So um, I would suspect that there'll be enough should be substantial changes in the EIS study for this supplemental. I think the reason why they're claiming it's supplemental is I think they want to use some of the previous study work, maybe modeling or I don't know whatnot. What's visible here is um, they gave a little presentation, and I'll put the link below or whatever, but about the project. And um, I just paused it at this time. This is the only way I was able to see this video play. If you look at just the slide deck, it doesn't have this. I paused it at it's around the 5 minute mark it starts, and I'm at the 6 minute mark where they're showing what a 50-year flood model projected, I guess, 50-year flood looks like in the Ala or modeled would look like in the Ala watershed. And I mean, you can see in the model there's a lot of flooding in Manoa, and it extends here up here, Upper Manoa. It extends out here, and I guess the model shows it overflows at Woodlawn. This is kind of by right past the Manoa Marketplace, Woodlawn Bridge. It's going to maybe overflow here and flow down through UH as far as the Manoa area. This is their 50-year flood um, model prediction for the Ala Wai project. Um, yeah, so this is what the slide deck looks like if you can't click on this video. So anyway, so in this iteration, they already sort of went through these I guess six alternatives here. Um, and in this supplemental EIS, they're proposing, I think, to study whatever their top one, and I believe it's some version of this hybrid one is the one that they're going to sort of propose so that they can study it in the SEI, supplemental EIS. What's the biggest differences here? Okay, so the original one back in 2017, really it was sort of based on largely on detention. So they had a number of detention basins in kind of in the maybe upper watershed area, um, and that was sort of one of the main focuses of the first project. In this project, it started, more this focus on conveyance, which is, I guess, just, moving the water down to the ocean. Um, and I think what they're going to talk about, they're proposing is this hybrid where um, Ala Wai Golf Course would serve as kind of a large detention basin, but kind of getting the water down to that would be more, it's a conveyance. So there'll be flood walls. And anyway, one of the things I kind of wanted to point out here, there was an alternative for sort of earlier on in the study, that the natural nature based. So this would be more watershed health stuff. It's been, I guess, not retained. So um, they deemed it in the scoping, I guess, that it didn't. I think what it was is it didn't help enough for a 50-year storm. So the idea was at a 50-year storm, there's so much water that, if you had if there was less, if there's more absorption, so less runoff, well, if you reduce runoff by 20%, by the time you get to a 50-year storm, maybe it wasn't enough to not flood. So that was the reason that it wasn't retained. I mean, I don't personally agree with that. Kind of get into that a little bit later, but okay. So what did I want to talk about? This. Okay, I think what I wanted to say was a lot of themes that I didn't really. I didn't think they were that good for the Manoa project. It's a similar theme. Okay, so for these floods, they have the model, right? And that creates sort of the requirement of how much water, you need to, you kind of what kind of solution you're going to build, right? It's totally based on the requirements, which were based on some assumptions, which are based on the model. So back in the Monobani court, they said, yeah, we're going to do a 10-year storm, and we're going to protect you from that, we're done. Okay, so the previous Alawai study was a 100-year storm. That's what they were trying to protect against. This time around, I guess they thought 100 years is very hard to protect against that. So this target is a 50-year storm. So, just this whole thing, it's as an engineer, it's kind of cool. You can geek out, right? It's like, okay, I got this problem. I'm gonna build this wall. I'm put this. I pump it up, pumps. Okay, and I can solve this problem, and that's great. It's great. It's kind of that's what engineers. That's what we do. It's fun, whatever. But the problem when you apply that to like natural flooding, rain, natural storm or something, you're playing this statistical game, right? Saying that okay, we're gonna protect against a 50-year flood with this system, but what happens when the 51-year flood comes or the 52? And the concerns that I had for MBC is similar concerns I have here. It's some of these systems they're putting in place, flood walls, whatnot, uh, when they fail, right? If a storm overtops them, it becomes, I mean, to me, more catastrophic than if it just water would just let, you know, the no project we just whatever floods, and then after the flood, um, it'll drain naturally, right? After the rain stops, that's kind of what would happen. If you put up flood walls and there's a bigger flood that goes over these walls, well, all of a sudden you have large volumes of water, right, rushing down flood walls, embankments rushing down, sweeping into these areas, flooding them. And then after they're flooded, water might be trapped, on that side of the flood wall, and I mean, it's water's not intended to be there, so it's no longer built to drain from there. So now you have it's kind of a bigger, potentially a more catastrophic problem. Um, which was going back to the whole watershed health thing. They said, well, it doesn't protect against a moderate 50-year storm. It doesn't at 50-year storm, it doesn't move the needle. Yeah, okay, but if you committed to watershed health, it reduces the amount of runoff. So the amount of water that is going to enter this system, right, anywhere, it's going to reduce that. For storms that are not 50-year storms, it's gonna reduce the flooding, right, for these other storm events. Um, the other thing that I thought was kind of curious here, this Ala Wai 50-year flood model, it shows water um, flooding. That's that's kind of in excess of what we see on the current FEMA maps. So current FEMA maps would put these people like in flood zone X. It puts this area sort of on the right of the Manoa stream. It puts it in flood zone X, which they claim is outside of a 500-year flood. But now we have a model that they're saying um, in a 50-year flood, you're gonna start seeing flooding. So um, it was kind of curious, and just to kind of close the loop, um, you know I, I spent a lot of time in this Manoa court draft DA and wondering, yeah, they say they're in flood zone X, they say there's no flood risk. Uh, back in 2004, these residents down here did experience flooding, so it wasn't like that wasn't 500 years ago. So um, curious to see that in their Ala Wai 50-year flood model, there's what appears to be flooding in a very similar area to the proposed project. I mean, here's this hook. Come across, you get to here. Here's the hook in the stream, right? You come across, and you get to here. So, um, that kind of, um, I thought that was noteworthy. This this 50-year flood model that the Ala Wai project is using is somehow different than how how FEMA um, made our flood maps. Noteworthy thing. Okay, so closing, the Ala Wai project is reevaluating um, their open public comments for the supplemental EIS that they're going to be starting to study for the kind of the reboot of the Ala Wai flood plan. So yeah, please submit comments. If you thought flooding was an issue in Manoa, sure, then um, it's worth commenting. Um, Structurally, in the proposal, they took out the Manoa Park detention basin, but that kind of means there's some elements here down here, but they took out all of I think the elements above here. So I guess what that meant to me is in this model, there's still going to be this flood risk up here, right? Because there's no mitigation factors above upstream of this woodlawn thing. They're gonna put something proposed right here, like a flood wall or something. Okay, yep. Thanks for listening.